I present you the perfect pet. It is OpenCat. It's a GPL-3, highly programmable and maneuverable robotic cat that's powered by AI and 3D printing with a Raspberry Pi for extra flavor.
Well, isn't that neat?
They got a video. Should we roll the live dice?
Let's check it out.
Okay, here we go.
Is it creepy or cute? That's what we want to know.
The OpenCat demo. Oh boy. Oh boy. So it's crawling. It looks like a kid's robotic toy.
It does, yeah.
It does have the ability to get itself back up when it gets knocked over.
That'll be useful.
Here's version 2.
Wars.
You know, I gotta say, version 2 is looking a lot better. They're really committed to this thing, Wes. They're really committed to this thing.
I mean, it is pretty impressive. Now, I don't know that I want to have it like around my house if I didn't build it, but
right. Or when you're sleeping, would you always make sure to turn it off? I mean, think about that for a second. Do you want some robot cat? Because a real cat, they roam around the house at night. You can respect the project here on this.
Maybe you could turn it into like a RoboCat security droid.
Maybe mount a laser on there.
Oh, yeah.
This is Linux Unplugged, episode 238 for February 27th, 2018. Oh, welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that is covered in barbecue and been cleaning up dog poo. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
It's one of those pre-shows, Wes, good and bad.
We made it. We're here.
Yeah.
The show must go on.
We fired up the barbecue pre-show for the first time. Oh, I'm sorry. The grill. For the first time. And we had to feed ourselves, to prepare our bodies, to cover all of the community news that we've got this week. I feel like this should be a nice, calm, relaxing Linux Unplugged that we'll wander through before I head off to scale. I need something low-key because the next week...
Take it easy, recharge.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Going down to Pasadena, California. So we're going to go through just a few bits, a couple of apps, some nice community news, an update on Xfce. Did you know there actually is some progress on the Xfce desktop? Yes. Yes, they're nearly to GTK3. We'll tell you all about that, their current status. Our buddy Wimpy's here with a pretty cool option for Ubuntu MATE installers for 1804 coming up. And the crew over at KDN Live has a killer new release that's in the works that might just give Final Cut a run for its money.
Oh!
Yeah. Then we'll check in on that poll about dropping Discord and switching back to IRC, see what the results were. And then, Wes, it's time to bring a little freedom to your vehicle.
Oh, finally.
I've been debating this myself. Should I get one of them, like, Android Auto dashes? Because my radio needs to be replaced. It's bad. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. But then I don't want to be locked into, like, one particular hardware vendor, and they're probably not going to update it properly, and it's probably going to be underpowered. So I've never really pulled the trigger on, like, upgrading my car's sound system. But friends, if you wait long enough, the open source community always provides a solution. So this week, we're going to talk about Crankshaft, which is a turnkey Linux distribution for the Raspberry Pi that transforms it into an Android Auto headset. All you need is a Raspberry Pi 3 board and the official Raspberry Pi 7-inch touchscreen, which is like $60 US. And then you got a turnkey Linux distro. We'll tell you about it. Yeah. Have you heard of Crankshaft, Wes?
No, I have not.
Well, you will hear more about it coming up. But let's start with some community news. This has been sort of leaking out in bits and details here and there. Corbin Davenport over at AndroidPolice.com writes that it looks like ChromeOS may soon be able to run Linux applications in a container. Of course, you're probably thinking, well, why does it have to do in a container? ChromeOS is based on Linux. Well, I'm sure it's many reasons, security being one of them. It looks like this is coming from some documentation that's leaked out. And if you go to Chrome Unboxed, they have a ChromeOS developer who uploaded 2 screenshots of the container feature and what it'll look like. You get a pop-up that comes up with a description that says, would you like to develop on your Chromebook? You can run your favorite Linux apps in command line tools seamlessly and securely. And then it gives you a couple of prompts to install Terminal.
Ooh, look at that. I like that.
Reminds me of the subsystem for Linux.
It's like a freedom box right there.
Doesn't this kind of remind you? Yeah, it's like Google's answer to the subsystem for Linux on Windows for Chrome OS. Does that make sense? It's like they're trying to be competitive with that feature on Windows.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it kind of targets that, it splits the difference. You can still have a simple platform for most end users, but your developers or other people that need a little bit extra, that option's there.
Is it actually usable, though? That would really be my question.
That's a good question.
Are Chromebooks fast enough? I don't know. Let's ask the Mumble Room. Time-appropriate greetings there, Mumble Room. Welcome to the show, guys.
G'day.
Hello.
Oh, hey there.
Hello.
Snuck it in there. You didn't know when I was going to do it, did you? I surprised you.
Get it out of here.
So, Wimpy, what do you think of this? Do you think this would actually make Chromebooks a viable solution? The thing that crossed my mind is students. Like, my son has a Chromebook provided by his school.
I think anything that enables people to experiment with Linux in an accessible way is a good thing, particularly for students.
Yeah, and I could see too, like if you've got a limited budget or whatever, or it's like again, it's provided. It just sort of opens up a whole new range of functionality, and I wonder what the limits will be. That's really going to be the question. How far will Google let you take this? What are they going to make available? Is it only just going to be a couple of things? Terminal's interesting. That makes sense.
That's a big start, yeah. Right?
And then if it's all contained, they don't have to worry about you mucking around with ChromeOS. So check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes. Anybody else in the Mumble Room, if you have anything to add, if you're a Chromebook user, I'd be particularly interested. But I'm not a ChromeOS user. I am still reluctantly an Evernote user. And I don't know how many different Evernote clients or Evernote alternatives or Evernote killers that we have covered on this show. But we have one more. One more because the question still comes in. And if you're like me, you're still stuck with this thing, especially when you travel. It's called Tusk. It's an Evernote client, and it seems to actually connect to the Evernote backend. It's also available as a snap. They say they've improved integration with Linux. That seems like a good thing.
That's great.
It has some Markdown cheat sheet support. I haven't tried it myself because I still haven't decided if I'm going to just quit Evernote cold turkey or not, but it does look pretty compelling. And Joey over at OMG Ubuntu wrote a pretty good write-up that kind of makes me want to give it a go again. It looks good. Like if you're looking at the video,
sharp looking, yeah.
It actually looks better than the official Evernote client. So I don't, this is almost Tusk is almost taken to the point where it's like I don't even want Evernote to, I don't even need them to. This looks even better than what they're
done.
I'm good.
And it's just a snap away. So
just a freaking snap away. Have you tried it, Wimpy? It's a snap. I mean, aren't you obligated to try all snaps? I think that's in the contract.
Popey's been working on that one, so I've not installed that one yet. But then again, I don't use Evernote,
yeah,
so
you have to be an
I've got no
user.
real need to.
Good on you for avoiding that trap. I got into it.
It's like poison
when mobile, was brand new. And I just assumed they'd eventually get something for Linux, and I regret that decision. But damn if it doesn't have some of the best OCR features. Like when I'm traveling, I can take pictures of signs of places that I need to note for like show reference or just for travel purposes. That is extremely valuable for me. So maybe Tusk will solve that. We'll see. Maybe I'll give it a go once I get back. Because I'm probably going to end up using Evernote on my phone while I'm traveling. It almost always happens.
Yeah, right.
Reservation stuff.
It's just easy. It's there. It works.
I tell you what, Wes. Tell you what. Let's talk about something else. Something to pick me back up. Improving laptop battery life. This is some work that the Fedora project has been putting in, and they've outlined some of the ways that they're trying to enable various hardware power-saving features by default in Fedora. So one of the things that they're implementing, and maybe we're going to see this in other distributions too, I would assume, but right now Fedora is the one that's talking about it. They're going to make a new SATA link power management policy, which actually mirrors the Windows defaults. Surprisingly is often a good way to go when it comes to some of this hardware power management stuff. Enable Intel HDA codec power saving by default with a 1-second timeout, which saves 0.4 watts of power on an idle laptop. That's a huge amount, really. And by the way, the SATA link power management could save up to 1.5 watts of power on an idle laptop.
Sweet deal.
That's a big deal right there. And then enable USB auto suspend for USB Bluetooth receivers by default. We'll see how that goes. Which could also save 0.4 watts. And I like that they actually put numbers on this stuff. When you add all that up, though, it could be a pretty decent battery savings on Fedora, which could really kind of make the distro stand out. And I like that they're enunciating all of the stuff they're doing over here on the wiki. Now,
that stuff takes tuning, and so it's nice to nice to be explicit about it.
Look at this too. They have this table, I guess, of the SATA PowerLink management policy changes testing. And so they have like Dell laptops and HP laptops and Lenovo laptops and Asus ZenBooks on here as well. And it's legit. It's pretty legitimate. So they have comparisons before and after. So I'll just pick out, let's like say the ThinkPad T400, for example. using an SSD. Before their tweaks on idle, it was sitting there taking 13.6 watts of power. After their tweaks, which will just be enabled by default, idle, it drops to 11.8. So it goes from 13.6 to 11.8 watts. And that could really translate into more minutes on a battery. And some of the changes are less dramatic. Some of them are even more dramatic. Some of them are barely noticeable. One of them that kind of jumps out at me is the EliteBook, the HP EliteBook 8540W. It goes from 18.8 to 17.9. You know, a point actually. It's decent actually. They're all noticeable. None of them are actually anything to scoff at.
They're all savings I'll take, that's for sure.
They tried on the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon 2nd Gen. They tried to enable some of the SATA link power management stuff, and it produced data corruption.
Whoopsie.
Whoa.
That's a nice thing to know about ahead of time.
So don't go just playing with this stuff, maybe. You know? Don't go just trying that on your own distro to see if it's going to...
or at least not with data you care about.
But it'll be really interesting to run Fedora 28 on a laptop and then run 27 and see if I could actually just perceive a difference. Not have to measure, but can I just perceive it?
Yeah, does it feel different to the end user?
Yeah. And what's nice about this is it doesn't require like a bunch of crazy software they have to pre-install, or like it's not requiring like a whole bunch of new packages on the ISO.
Just some new good defaults.
Yeah. And people will talk about, hey, if you want great battery life, use Fedora for at least a little while. So that'll be good for them too.
You just said it right there. So now people are saying it.
It's being said. It's being said. There's some great news too for those of you that instead of installing Fedora 28 are going to be installing Ubuntu 18.04. But we're just talking about the future releases here, aren't we? On Ubuntu 18.04, it appears that you will now be able to switch snap package channels. I'm probably screwing that up a little bit, but my layman's understanding is one of the features of snap packages is that you can have like a beta channel and a release channel. And now the GNOME software app, or I think it's just called software, will let you choose which channel you want to subscribe to. I think I'm getting that all right. Wimpy, do you want to errata any of that?
Yeah, you've got that about right. So by default, there are 4 channels. There's stable, which is self-explanatory, candidate, which is where developers will put their release candidates, betas for betas, and edge, which is typically what you'd hook up to your CI system. So after every commit or your daily or nightly builds, they would all land in edge, so you can do your integration testing. And now what you can do in GNOME software in 18.04 is when you look at the details for a snap in Software Center, it has a label there for the track, or rather the channel that it's currently installed from, which by and large would be stable. And if you click on that, it will produce a list of the other channels that are available to you. So if you want to test the current beta, or you want to get the latest crack from Edge, then you can switch that and switch those channels. But what it also enables you to do is some of the people that are publishing in the store are using tracks, which are in addition to those channels. So, for example, JetBrains have their early access program. So you can access the early access versions of all of their products through their EAP track. And likewise with Skype, you can access their insiders builds. So if you want to test out the really, really latest stuff, then you can also switch to those tracks through GNOME software as well now.
That is really cool that JetBrains is doing that. The aspect that I like about it from an end user's perspective is it's tidier when I search for an app, because instead of getting 3 or 4 entries for Slack or Mumble, it's just one entry, and then I can tack on which channel I want during the installation.
It's very clear.
What level of risk you're prepared to take as a user.
Yeah. And so if I say do an edge release of something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's containerized or not, it's sandboxed or not. It could be a edge release and still be sandboxed.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The edge is just
just
labels.
the release. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just labels. So it's whatever the developer feels comfortable inputting in those channels.
What is the terminology for one that isn't sandbox? Is it legacy, or what's the term that when you're doing install?
There's classic, which is it's without any confinement, and then there is also dev mode, which you can't publish in the stable channel.
Right.
And dev mode is kind of a reduced confinement model whilst you're iterating on your snap and scaffolding it together.
Classic, I think, is what I was thinking of. And so now you don't even have to worry about what was the syntax or how do I add it to the install command. Now it'll just be exposed via the GUI for users installing software, which is great.
Yeah, it makes it seem much more first class.
Yeah, so that way when you know it's available, like I just did, but I couldn't quite remember the syntax, that's perfect for that. That's where that kind of stuff is really nice. Is that, do you know, an upstream thing, Wimpy, or is that unique to Ubuntu?
It's part of the Snap plugin for GNOME software.
Oh, of course. So it's implemented at the plugin level. That is. Yeah. That actually, you got to say, GNOME software is actually keeping up. Like when it was thought up, we weren't talking Flatpaks and snaps, were we? And in the past, I could have seen that having to be completely revamped. I'm not going to say it's my favorite way to install software or find software or even look at software, but I got to give them credit for the fact that they haven't had to throw out the entire thing, to support Flatpaks.
Yeah, that's an open source win.
Yay for plugins, I guess. All right, Wes. I know you're not a big Xfce user. Have you ever been an Xfce?
Oh yeah, back in the day. for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I was too.
It's been probably 5 years now, but
yeah, same. Yeah, I'd say it's been about 5 years. Yeah, I actually used it quite a bit for a while, and it's kind of almost it's a meme in a way in the Linux community about how long it takes for Xfce to ship. And they've been working on 4.14, I think, for 3 years. And the big part of 4.14 is the transition to GTK 3. And don't think of Xfce as one monolithic thing either. Think of it as a set of many different software components. Like you have Thunar for the file management, you have the window manager, you have the panels, you have the settings daemon, you have the power manager, the session initializer itself. And then, of course, you have the XF Desktop, which is the program that's responsible for managing desktop icons and backgrounds. So there's lots of sub-components. It goes on, actually. There's more. There's lots of other components. And 4.14 has really been a process of porting everything to GTK3 Plus instead of GTK2, and using GDbus instead of dbus lib, and then using symbolic icons for all the panel plugins and removing depreciated widgets from code, old crap in the code. And as they've moved along, they've made some good progress. They have ported many things to GTK3, including Thunar, the file manager, and the panel, and the power settings, and the settings manager itself, and the desktop session manager. But there is some low-hanging fruit that doesn't even have maintainers, like the calendar application, or the archive manager, or the CD burning application, or the volume control. So there's a few things that they're not even like getting started yet. So that's a bit rough. There's 118 open bugs in XF Desktop, 119 in Xfce4 Session, 206 in Xfce4 Settings, and it goes on. So they're behind here. And I think what my concern is you're dealing with 15 contributors, essentially, who are working on their free time to port these projects, to get them ready. And there's no real big corporate interest in Xfce. There's no Red Hat or Canonical or SUSE behind Xfce. And there's not any real big major distro that's even shipping it as its default desktop. So they're kind of an underdog here. They're just it is just a passion project for these people. And there's no escaping the elephant in the room that is GTK4. I mean, like it's getting close. By the time they get Xfce 4.14 out, GTK4 could really be close to stable. And then they have to start again. I don't know if it's going to be the same amount of work, but that's to say nothing of Wayland support.
Yeah, I mean, Xfce has a lot. There's a lot going on. It's not, has a lot of functionality as a desktop. It's not a bad desktop. That's I'm sure there's a sizable code base to port.
Yeah, it's hard for a project like that. It really is tough. And I know that we have folks in the audience that love it. You know, Joe from Linux Action News and Late Night Linux, it's his #1 driver, and I've used it myself.
I mean, the pace is concerning, perhaps, but it's nice to at least see some details of the process. That it seems like they have at least semi-structured way to go about doing it, and to work does progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody in the mumble room an Xfce occasional user or full-time user? I'm betting no.
Well,
yeah.
I don't use the desktop per se.
Yeah.
But I do. I use Xfce 4 terminal. And
yeah, it's great for that.
A couple of the labs.
Yeah, or like X2Go. But honestly, right. I think Wimpy has played a big role in making it irrelevant for me, because Mate has gotten so compelling, and especially Ubuntu Mate over the last few years. And so where I used Xfce in the past, I now use Mate. So it's kind of your fault, Wimpy.
Well, I'm sorry for the Xfce project for that, but I would like to point out that, you know, it took Mate an awfully long time to port from GTK2 to GTK3. The only reason it wasn't so obvious is we were maintaining a GTK2 and a GTK3 code base in parallel during that transition, which to some extent probably delayed things. But for as long as I've been involved in Mate, which is getting on for 6 years now, we were doing that migration to GTK3, and I think as a team we're only satisfied that we've really kind of got there with the last release, which was last month, in terms of the GTK3 stuff, in that now every if-def, you know, rule in the code for special casing different versions of GTK have been removed, because we're now just coalesced around GTK 3.2.2, which is the last stable release of GTK 3.
You know what
that said,
yeah, go on. Well, no, I want you to finish.
You said that, you know, the next thing is GTK 4.
Yeah.
There's no obligation to immediately start, you know, porting to GTK 4. GTK 3, I mean, everything's just landed on GTK 3, even things like Chrome, Firefox,
right.
LibreOffice, you know, those things have only just, you know, within the last, you know, months even, you know, LibreOffice a bit longer, but, you know, within months have started to properly take their hints from GTK3.
Right.
So I think it's going to be some time. And there's even, you know, the bigger projects like GIMP, you know, that have been around forever. They're still GTK2. So there's still, you know, catch up to be done, you know, all over the place.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is
GTK3 will be a stable target for, you know, desktops and application developers for some time to come.
And in the world of Flatpaks and snaps, does it perhaps matter a little bit less if, you know, if you've got an application in theory that needs GTK 3.22, you should be able to ship that for quite a while as a Flatpak or a snap, even if my desktop is GTK 4 at that point.
Yep, absolutely. But I think you'll see GTK 3 and GTK 4 living alongside each other in distros in the future, in the same way that we have GTK 2 and GTK 3 living alongside each other, you know, and have done for many years now.
That makes a lot of sense. You know what so they're not talking about Wayland, but I don't see Mate talking a lot about Wayland. I've seen you make a few hints that in a recent 1804 post, I think you said don't get too excited by some of the Wayland work in there. It's not what you think. I think was something similar to that wording. Yeah, what's that about?
We've been having the Wayland references that you may have seen in the change logs were actually to explicitly turn on Xwayland for some of the applications. So for people that were installing the Mate applications in a GNOME session, for example, which was, you know, Wayland by default on Fedora and, you know, on Ubuntu 17.10, it meant that those applications would actually work.
I see. Great.
But it is not a full, you know, Wayland implementation. It just enables Xwayland to step in and take over. But we have had our upstream conversations with the core Mate team just this week about our road to Wayland, and we've got some more discussions to have there, but we're starting to form a plan about how we're going to go about that.
Is your sense that it is more work than the port to GTK3?
Yes, although we may get lucky in terms of how we can go about doing this, in that there may be some people who can assist us.
Do some heavy lifting, as it were.
Yeah. So in the future, when that's all fleshed out, I will come back on and explain more about how we're going to tackle that one. Yeah.
I think that's going to be extremely interesting to watch, because I think that could be useful for other projects as well. All right. Well, good stuff. All right. Well, don't go too far. I want to keep talking about Mate for just a moment, but I do want to take a break and thank DigitalOcean. So stand by while we mention. I did get this in last week, this great deal we have. DigitalOcean.com. You go to do.co/unplugged. That's the URL I go to right now, because I'm pretty sure that's the best way to get the special $100 credit offer that DigitalOcean is offering the Jupiter Broadcasting audience. It's a limited time offer, and I believe it lasts for 60 days once you apply it to your account. Now, this is incredible, because honestly, in the past, the traditional, and what I'll go back to, is the $10 credit, which is legitimately enough to get real work done for like 2 months on DigitalOcean.
It's awesome.
So the $100 credit blows my mind.
You can go build anything you want.
And I think this is what they're thinking, because it's true infrastructure on demand. Everything's SSDs, 8 data centers all over the world, a killer dashboard to manage all of it, and then an API to automate it when you're ready to go, or just grab some open source code that does it already. But here's where I think they're going with the $100 credit, is they got a couple of new types of droplets that are killer. So they got a $15 a month one where you can mix and match the different resources, which, depending on what you're doing, maybe you don't need
just work out.
Yeah, maybe you need more RAM, and you don't necessarily need a lot of local disk, or maybe you need a ton of CPU for something. And you just mix and match as you need it. And they're standard droplets, which you can get for $5 a month starting there. They just got even more competitive. They're more everything. And if you have an existing one, you can upgrade it for free. They're crushing it. It's great. DigitalOcean.com or do.co/unplugged. I've been a customer for, I think, 4 years now, which blows my mind. We have large parts of the Jupiter Broadcasting infrastructure which run on DigitalOcean 24/7, and that means I am now down to one server on premise, which is just a large storage FreeNAS server now. When we first started at Jupiter Broadcasting, we brought in an i7 rig with lots of memory and lots of local disk and an NFS disk, and we ran a bunch of systems in a VM, Proxmox. I told you guys about this all on the show. And over the years, it is so much simpler, so much faster, and honestly, long-term, it's costing me way less to run on DigitalOcean than having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on local infrastructure. And the nice thing is we can build for what we need today and then easily expand it. I've said enough. Really, all you need to know is do.co/unplugged, $100 credit if you're a new customer. Hot off the presses right there, Wes. Limited time offer, so go take advantage of it, because I was negligent in telling you about it soon enough. Also, if you want to get yourself some webmail set up, I'm a fan of the Round Cube. That's one of my more. I think it's like, I don't know what else you could compare it to. Actually, it's the closest to something like a Gmail or like a commercial web mail client that you can run and host yourself. Round Cube, it just connects to your mail server over IMAP and SMTP, so you don't even necessarily have to host your own mail server. You could connect it to just another IMAP server that you have or that you may be already using. Round Cube. They have a tutorial on DigitalOcean for how to set it up. I don't actually know. Don't tell them I said this, but I don't think there's anything necessarily too DigitalOcean specific, maybe than just the very beginning of installing the computer. But the rest would work if you just had your own system.
Yeah, it's just great documentation.
Yeah, or, go spin up a VPS over on DigitalOcean. They call them droplets. Put up Roundcube and then point it to an IMAP server that you've been using. And now you just got yourself webmail that you're hosting that somebody else isn't slurping down. That's pretty great. do.co/unplugged. All right, so Wimpy, I was talking before the show with you, and you started describing the minimal installer work that you're doing for Ubuntu MATE, and I thought, okay, yeah, that sounds decent. But the more you talked about it, I started thinking, geez, this might be the most popular implementation. Like, this is sounding really, really good. So let's back up a little bit and maybe just a super quick refresher on what the minimal install is, and I guess maybe some of the work you had to do to get it in Ubuntu MATE, because I guess you don't just inherit that. You have to make some choices and implement some decisions.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about it.
So this is piggybacking on the work of my colleagues, Did Rox and Laney, who have landed the minimal install capability in the Ubiquiti installer. So I just happened to be poking around in the Ubiquiti code on an unrelated matter yesterday evening, and I noticed that this feature had landed. So I contacted Laney and said, "So how do I turn this on for Ubuntu MATE?" And he said, "Oh, it's easy. You just create this file and you put the things in it that you want to be removed from your install." So I did that work for Ubuntu MATE last night. And then the nightly images ran.
So it's built. It is built for the flavors to use as well. Like it was built, purpose built for that. It's not just unique to just upstream Ubuntu.
No, any of the flavors can take advantage of it. So if I'll just go into some tech speak, because I know some of the flavor maintainers listen to the podcast. So what you do is you modify your seeds, and the seeds are where you list what applications are what your distribution is comprised of. So the applications that are in the core image, in the base image, and you add a new file in there, and it's simply called desktop.minimal-remove. And in that file, you basically list all of the packages that you want to be removed from the default install. And if that file exists, when Ubiquiti runs, it will now present a new option in the installer. So in the install screens, if you've installed Ubuntu before, you will have seen a screen where it asks you if you want to install updates while it's installing, and if you want to install additional codecs. On that screen, you'll see a new option, which is, do you want the minimal install? And it describes the minimal install as, the desktop and utilities and browser only.
Oh yeah, I mean, now when you're combining like lightweight MATE with a minimal install, so it's just Firefox, basic desktop tools, core utilities, no VLC, no Thunderbird, no calculator.
Well, the calculator's part of the core sort of MATE desktop, so you get that.
Yeah, you need that.
So you get the file manager and the text editor and the document viewer and the image viewer,
that makes
but
sense.
you don't get LibreOffice, you don't get Thunderbird, you don't get VLC, you don't get Rhythmbox, all of that extra stuff. You don't get transmission, so everything additional to the core desktop is effectively removed. So you get a very trim, simple system. And I was thinking to myself, who would use this and why would you use it? And I've heard a few people say, oh well, I like to curate my own desktop experience. I know what applications I want, so they would want that. But I was thinking to myself, how would I use it? And I was thinking, well, I've got one machine that I use specifically for gaming now, and I would choose the minimal option on that machine.
Sure.
So I just get the base stuff, and then I can slap Steam on top of that, and I've just got a real trim machine for running Steam. Or you could create your own Kodi boxes, in a similar way as well.
Yeah, I do like that. I was just thinking too, like you could absolutely see it as a excuse me, as a workstation OS, where, maybe you go to work and you install Slack and you have to install Chrome and maybe even Skype and all of these things that just are kind of, I don't know, they're just applications now that you can snap install or go get
have a real minimal base,
or you go get the dev. Yeah. The Software Boutique actually makes some of that easier on MATE, but I really like that because I'm generally going to Ubuntu MATE for a minimal, lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah, but what it retains is all of the underlying hardware support. So anything you need for your network devices to function, that's all still included. Anything you need for Bluetooth and audio, that's all still included. So it's just that layer of applications on the top, but it's down to each flavor maintainer to choose what they want to remove. So there's no prescribed list. The list in Ubuntu MATE is different than the list in Ubuntu, for example. But it means that
there's the question that's coming up before we go too far off that is how is this different than an install script that just is like a different set of packages to install? How is this different than an install script is essentially what the chat room's asking in IRC.
How it's different from an install? Well, it's the opposite of an install script. It's an uninstall script, essentially.
I like that. Yeah, because it's an image that's getting deployed to the hard drive, right?
Yeah.
It's getting based on the live environment.
Yeah, so the image that's on the ISO, there is a squashfs file system, and that is effectively put on your hard disk. And then at the end of that process, there are already some packages that get removed. The installer itself, for example, so Ubiquiti, the installer, removes itself as part of the cleanup of the installation. So what this minimal install does is it tacks itself on to that piece of the code that's already there to build out a bigger list of what should be removed. And then it rattles through that list and removes anything that the maintainer has identified as this is stuff you don't need in a minimal install.
Okay.
Interesting.
That makes sense. So it's the opposite of an install script. And this will be landing in 1804. It's already essentially the work's done, right?
It landed in the daily images yesterday.
Oh!
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
So it's there. It's just down to each of the flavors now to create their minimal remove file in their seeds. And then they can take advantage of that function as well.
Well, that's really great. It's funny that we're just getting to it now, don't you think, in a way? Like, why haven't we had this for years?
It's interesting because before I worked at Canonical, I did some work with the Ubuntu team where we were trying to achieve precisely this. Because we wanted minimal installations. And in fact, Ubuntu make their own set of, I think they call them core images, available and have done for a couple of years now, where they effectively have an ISO, which is the minimal ISO. So it's, what I've just described, but already packed in an ISO. And we did some work to try and land that in a way that everyone could have two ISOs. So you could have an Ubuntu MATE, I think we called them base, an Ubuntu MATE base ISO, and the full fat ISO. And for reasons people were busy, that never got any traction. And now, now we have this, which is, I think, quite an elegant solution, because now there's still one ISO to download, but you can use it in two ways.
So did this ball get rolling from what you probably understand, because I know it's not directly work that you were involved in. Didrock's probably better to ask, but did this get started based on some of the feedback that people, I like Chrome or I prefer MPV, and so is this sort of a middle ground?
I think you're well connected with Didrocks, and you should ask him that question, because I don't know the origin story of how this came to be.
Because it is funny that it's just showing up now in 1804. I mean, I'm thankful for it, but I think this, to a degree, is probably why some people have chosen other distributions. I'm sure not by a very large percentage, but I bet there's people in our audience that have decided to go a different route just because of the package selection. I mean, that was what drove people to Ubuntu too at the same time.
Yeah, and you've got both options now. Those people that like a very specific desktop experience can do that. For some people, all you actually need is the minimal install, because you can do everything in a browser. You've basically created a Chromebook at that point.
Yeah, and now you can install containers or applications and containers, and it's all cyclical or whatever it is, circular. What is it? What am I looking for, Wes? Cyclical. That's what it is. Cyclical.
You got there yourself.
Well, Wimpy, thank you for telling us all about that. You know me, I just love hearing about that. I hope other people do too, because even if you're not an Ubuntu MATE user, I think this stuff is fascinating. Because right here, I'm sitting on a Plasma Neon desktop, but yet I love hearing about. I love the thought behind it and all of it. So I really always appreciate when you come on here and tell us all that stuff.
You're welcome.
I don't know if anybody out there has had a chance to try Kdenlive Live recently. A lot of people ask about video editing still. We get a lot of questions, and I kind of punt and I punt. But it's getting legitimate with Kdenlive Live, and I'd like to know people who are doing actual serious amounts of video editing under Linux, like Ven Stone, who edits. I think he's doing 2 shows a week under Linux, but I think he uses OpenShot. Like an old version of OpenShot, because he's a madman, Ven. You're Ven.
That's crazy.
You're a madman. So I don't know if I'd like to know if somebody like Ven, or there's probably not as many people that do as much editing as he does, but on a regular basis are putting out complex, long content on Linux, have you tried the new Kdenlive Live? Because this, to me, is hitting a lot of what draws me to Final Cut. And this is getting... I don't know, maybe it's also the fact, probably is a bit of the fact that I've been on a Plasma Kick recently, too. And this is it's a cute application, so it also looks really great on my desktop. But I downloaded the app image. Yes, it's an app image, so you can. It's kind of a convoluted process. I will link to the fastest way for you to get the app image, because they don't just link to it directly. They make you attend this cafe session, and you can find a link to a text file that has a list of the mirrors, which will then land you on this page that I have found. So I will link this to you if you want to try it and give me feedback, because I'm going to experiment a little bit with it, but I'm honestly just not doing as much video as I was in the past, so I'm not the best candidate. But it looks like a super great release. One of the things that I really like about Kdenlive Live is they have this really steady approach, and they've been like on this, we do, like, so for example, 17.12 series has just been constant, solid, fix this little thing, solve this bug, come up with a solution for that, minor bug fix stuff. And so you can just say, well, I'm on this branch, that's what I get. And I really like that about that too. So 18.04 is the next version, which I don't think is necessarily synced up to any Ubuntu number, but it's sort of that same versioning system. And they are working out the rough edges right now. They've published it as a app image, which I'll link to. And if you're out there and want to give them some feedback, if I was going to bet on a horse right now for getting really good, approachable video editing on desktop Linux, as much as I respect Jonathan and all of the hard continuing work he's doing into OpenShot over the years, the horse I would bet on right now is Kdenlive Live. Not Lightworks, not all of the other ones that we send in.
Really nice.
It's Kdenlive Live. Yeah, there's a lot of different ones. There's like a clip editor one, but it's just, yeah. So anyways, if you want to help what I think is potentially... our best hope for good video editing.
And we need one.
Yeah, it's called, the link in the show notes will be called KDE Experience Freedom with an exclamation mark. KDE Experience Freedom with an exclamation mark. That's the link to look for, because that's the typical kind of communication you get from the KDE group out there. They're not so good with the way they phrase things, or that kind of. I love them.
You haven't invested in freedom enough over there.
I know. I need to invest
in the program.
I need to invest in freedom, as their website tells me, and I need to experience freedom with an exclamation mark. I'm feeling pretty free right now. I do appreciate that about it. I do appreciate that. That may be the new air freshener, but I don't think so. I'm feeling pretty free. So we'll have that linked in the show notes if you want to check that out. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. That's where to go to support the show and sign up for a free 7-day trial. Free 7-day trial. What's better than free? Freedom. And maybe sometimes like a cold drink on a really...
Oh, that's way better.
It's really good. But free, like that, if that drink was free, it's even better. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
That's
like, you can't get better.
Yeah, no.
So 7-day free trial, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. It's a platform to learn about Linux and all of this stuff around Linux, and now the kind of stuff that gets you hired. That's another really nice thing about Linux Academy. I would use this for ongoing training as well as getting hired. Think of it as whatever you need to get done, if you need to learn more about a nitty-gritty thing around Linux, or if you need to learn about AWS and OpenStack and Azure and all of these things, this is also perhaps the best solution for you. They have some really, really great, and they're frequently adding new content to the AWS stuff. I'm really impressed with, they're maniacs over there with the content. And the way they get that is they hire full-time instructors, people that are really familiar with this stuff, and they just sit there and they churn out this stuff in a way that, I don't know, they have a system. They build a process where they come up with something that's really applicable to people, that's really going to add value for something to learn about. Then they build out the best way to do it. They build into the system where you can choose the distribution you want to learn from. They keep testing it out at each point. Then they start testing it more to get kind of feedback. And they've reached out to me a few times on this to see if I want to try out a new system. And then they roll it out and iterate on it in a way that keeps your subscription valuable. And then they add new content, and they go back and they keep the old stuff fresh, and then they're ready to help you whenever you get stuck, because those instructors are full-time. This is a machine now, and it's just been getting them a ton of industry credibility. And you can get hands-on scenario-based labs, a course scheduler for when you're busy, and they have all kinds of content that really is great for when you're just want to hone in on one single thing, or you're ready to take on a whole certification course. And so that means when you've got a really busy life or when you've got time to take your career to the next level, they've got content to serve you. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there, sign up for a free 7-day trial, and a big thank you to Linux Academy. 7-day trial free. So great, I hit my mic because my hands are
You're
dancing
so
around.
excited.
I really was. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. All right, you crazy sons of bitches. I can't be dragged around like this anymore.
Ooh, we're going to talk about this.
So I asked this really stupid question last week. Well, actually, it started when I asked the question, would you like to switch to Discord? And everybody said yes. And now, here we are, 3-4 months into this thing? Maybe a little more than that, 6 months? I don't know.
It feels like ages.
It feels like it's been 25 years. And I actually don't mind Discord. I've been hanging out in other communities, and you know what I like is the communities that don't have to waffle like this. That's what I like. It's just you don't waffle, you don't move it, you just invest and you build. And every time I feel like we change direction, you spill off some people. You also gain new people. So it's got its pros and its cons. But we went out to a vote and we said, should we switch from Discord back to IRC or just hang tight, stick it out with Discord for the long haul? And each has its pros and cons. IRC's well, it's like plumbing at this point. It's pretty universal, and it's a classic. Like it's just like it's amongst our community. It's got a bit of a barrier of entry to people outside the open source community, but it's a staple in the open source community. Now, Discord has the advantage of a network effect. It also has a bunch of other fancy features that are more modern, like they just have their own mobile client, and they support emojis and embedded imagery and Twitter previews and all this stuff.
All the fanciness.
Yeah, that if you were to say, drop down on the planet today in 2018 and try to join a community, you would just kind of expect that they might just be able to do this. They might just have this. So I wasn't really sure what to do. We were thinking behind the scenes pragmatically that it would be easier for some of the things we want to automate if it was IRC, because we're still trying to come up with this perfect cloud OBS setup where we would ingest an IRC stream and automatically generate a video and send that out on the video stream and all of that. But it just doesn't seem like that would be super easy to do with Discord. It would be pretty easy to do with IRC. So the vote went out, and it was pretty clear. IRC by a 79% vote, and Discord had a 21% vote. We're not talking hundreds of numbers here, but that's usually that's how it sticks. Those are usually pretty indicative. Representative, I believe, would be the term. So that's a 79% win, right? That's huge. I mean, that's a big margin of win for IRC. That's big.
People have spoken, I suppose.
The thing is if we go back to IRC, we go back and we just...
Right, like does the Discord just die? Is it left to wither? What?
Well, I don't think you got to shut it down. I mean, the main thing I'm thinking about is like if you want to it's like the primary chat room. So it's what's on the live stream. It's where people idle the most, or are they having an active conversation? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have answers to that. I don't like any of this, but I want to do what the audience likes in this regard because it's a tool for them. So, Virtual Lug, you guys get first say since you're here. You're in the voice chat. You get first say. Does anybody have a strong opinion on this one way or the other? I'd love to hear some input on this because I just want to use whatever people like.
Yeah, well, to me, I would see Discord as like the Reddit chat versus the RC being the live stream, and also since there are very few people who go to the live stream to participate. I mean, there are more people that are coming in a day, week, at months, and years to come, such as myself that came in recently. But I would say IRC would fill that niche pretty well with the live stream, and plus there are some clients that do support some of the newer features that you mentioned. So,
yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to leave the vote up for a little bit longer while I think about it. I'm not in a huge rush to do anything, and I got to go to scale, but it's on my mind. I want to do what people like. So, meanwhile, the Telegram group's going solid. So
yeah, they're up in their own universe.
That is good, really. That's kind of a nice thing. It's like that's just like something like we don't care.
Yeah.
If you want to get on that, jupiterbroadcasting.com/telegram to join our Telegram group. There's my quarterly plug for that. All right, Wes. Well, that's not actually what we're...
No, it's not.
I guess that's on my mind. Like I said, this is a meandering
it's on
episode.
everyone's mind.
Let's talk about Crankshaft. This is pretty great. Now I'll play a little bit of the demo for you. I'm gonna do a couple of bits of it because it's a little rough. But just to give you an idea of what it's like. So you download this image, you write it to the SD card, you toss it in your Raspberry Pi, you hook up the $60 touchscreen, and
okay, so in this video I just want to talk real quick about the capability of OpenAuto and how it's working in the alpha version of Crankshaft right now. And let's start. This is just a Raspberry Pi 3B.
And so he goes through and demos the functionality of this thing. And once he gets it up and running, it just looks like Android Auto completely with your playback controls, your Google Now cards. It's communicating with his Android device. He just makes a phone call through it. He can see the battery life of his phone. He can use navigation maps.
It looks pretty handy.
It actually, there he's using Pocket Cast to listen to Radiolab. I kind of want to do this in my truck. You know what I'm talking about because my screen's all screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, you're a perfect candidate for it.
I know. If somebody has any experience with this, you got to let me know because I'm tempted to do this.
We just need the touch screen.
I need the screen. Yeah, I need to pick up the screen. And then you'd have to figure out a way to install it in the dash, which is not my strength, I gotta say. But it's called Crankshaft, and that was a developer there who you heard in the video. It's a project just by him. It's just his thing, and it's admittedly alpha, but come on, it's gonna be pretty cool. I think Android Auto is fairly baked, and it's using I think Raspbian for the distribution, and there's a pretty active amount of people on the GitHub talking to him about it.
It's nice to be able to play in that space at all and maybe even have a system that actually works and could be useful.
Yeah, and the main thing that I wanted to avoid with something like this was, and I was thinking like a car computer. I've been thinking about that for a couple of months. So I haven't really, the only reason I didn't go with a car computer is in the couple of months that I've been sort of debating what to do, I have found that I am perfectly happy just doing everything on my phone and having it go through the Bluetooth audio. And I don't really need my radio because I'm not listening to radio, and I don't listen to anything through the radio other than my phone now. So I thought, well, could I just get by with the phone? But the thing that this offers is A, your phone's still usable, but B, it puts it up on a bigger screen with more limited functionality that's focused for when you're driving. And for like the navigation and the messages and stuff like that, I think I would prefer that. And the ability to do search and stuff. So, hello there. Who was that?
Oh my.
Who was that? Dang.
Wimpy.
Now, would you prefer a car computer with a touchscreen, or would you prefer one of those laptop
mounts?
Mounts, like you have in a police cruiser.
That would be the way. That would be the way Noah would go. Noah's got one of those in his Jeep.
Fun.
Like one of those cop laptop mounts. God, Noah's such a gearhead, man. You know what? I tell you what. I don't know. I feel like that's too fiddly. See, that's what I'm liking about the Android Auto here on the Raspberry
If you
Pi.
could get it mounted well, it could be out of the way in the dash.
It's like a distilled user interface that's simplified for while you're driving. It's less cluttered. And going to laptops kind of like the opposite direction of that. Go ahead.
I mean, you can use the Android Auto app to simulate this in order to get a feel for the Android Auto interface.
Yeah. That's another thing. Is really I already have the Raspberry Pi 3. I think. Isn't there one around here somewhere? There is one around here, unless it got put into use somewhere. So I already have that part. I just need the screen, and then it's sort of a low-cost test. It's pretty great that this guy's... Oh, by the way, that is getcrankshaft.com. I should have said the URL sooner. Sorry about that. Getcrankshaft.com is where you go. If anybody is going to scale 16x, let me know if you've got something like that down there, because I want to see it. If you bring your car... Let me see it. I want to see that. That'd be pretty cool. I want to give a quick mention, too. Speaking of Scale, I've been talking about Scale in the new relaunched Tech Talk today. I mentioned that last week. We've now posted 2 frickin' episodes since last week's Linux Unplugged.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's some nostalgia goodness if you're a Linux Action Show former listener. There's some nostalgia goodness in episode 262, techtalk.today. Was where you find those techtalk.today. And I'll be covering my journey to Scale in that crap. Up in that S, as they say. I'm really happy with the way those 2 episodes have turned out. It's been a bit of a creative endeavor, but I've enjoyed it. And it's gotten, I got an itch I had that rash right there I wanted to scratch, so I've been able to scratch that.
That always feels good.
Yeah, and it gives me a spot to put a bunch of content in scale, like the trip there and meeting people and all that stuff.
And we get Tech Talk back for a brief little minute here.
For at least 10 episodes. So season 1, and we were 2 episodes in, so if you haven't gotten on board yet, they're shorter too. They're about 20 minutes, so go to techtalk.today.
Yeah. Ride this hype train with us.
Easy peasy, and even if you want to catch up on 2, it's a 40-minute podcast, and it's nice and tight. I hope people like it. I hope people like it because I'm going to put all I can into it for the 10 episodes I'm going to do, and then I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to be done, and that's going to be wonderful. Wimpy has inspired me. You've taught me well, Wimpy.
And the value of this is negative.
No, it's not.
You're
appreciate it. I appreciate it. That's season idea. Only I may never come back, I think. So
right, yeah.
That might be my twist might be it. Last time I put the show on hold, it was on hold for 2 years. So
you never can tell.
You never know. You never know. All right. Well, guess what? We're just about done here. We've been screwing around here, but this is just our low-key episode before I go to Scale. So next week, I will be at Scale with Noah, and I'm pretty sure we'll just do the show live from there. We'll just do a regular episode, but we'll happen to be at Scale. I don't know if we might have a few interviews or something. If we get something good, we'll put it in the show. So you'll be here.
Yeah.
Wes is going to come into studio and try to run all this crap on your own. Good luck with that. Jeez Louise. And then
we'll probably have an episode. Let's just say that.
We'll be down there throwing our crap together while you're in here trying to remember how to turn all this stuff back on. And one way or another, we should end up with a show next week.
Yeah.
Speaking of shows coming back, rumor has it the Ubuntu podcast is coming back, so go get more Wimpy.
That's exciting.
Yep, the Ubuntu podcast is on the return.
The rumors are true.
And if you want more Wes Payne, why not a little TechSnap? TechSnap.systems for the TechSnap program, which is back and better than ever. If I don't say so myself, TechSnap.systems, and at Wes Payne on Twitter. I'm at Chris LAS. The network is at Jupiter Signal. Stick around for Ask Noah if you're on the live stream. Noah's coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
He's got a pretty special guest. pretty special. I won't say anymore, but that's coming up soon. You show up on Tuesdays, and you stick around for Linux Unplugged. You join the virtual lug, hang out in our chat room, and then sit back and enjoy the Ask Noah show. You could even call in and ask him a question. That's how that kind of thing works. It's a Tuesday Linux sandwich, and you can get the times at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Also, our Reddit's at linuxunplugged.reddit.com. Thanks for being here. See you next week.
Bye.
All right, let's get a title and then let's get out of here.
Oh, a title.
Yeah,
Great
we got to get a
idea.
title. We got to get the titles.
Today, huh?
Hello, Eric.
That's awesome.
Is your weed extraction process done over there? Did it all work out?
Dude, seriously, once you guys started talking about the computer stuff, I totally could jump in because I have one. I have an Android
You're in a
one,
windstorm
but
over
then
there.
a leaf blower came by.
Yeah, nice. Well, you know, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Oh, the windstorm, that's my furnace.
The smell of free breeze, that's pretty good, TechMav, but probably a little too esoteric. What do you got? Anybody else got a title? What else do we got? KDE Freedom? Oh, no. Scanning. Indications negative. Accessing.
Crankshaft.
Accessing. Scanning. Crankshaft.
I have a Tech Talk Today question.
Yes, sir.
The feeds that I found in Pocket Cast for Tech Talk Today aren't being updated.
Have you checked them recently? Because they had a bug on their server-side thing with the feed.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah, that would be no good.
I just Googled for Talk Today and went to the new one that's listed on the website. So
Yeah, if you want to just put it in, it's just techtalk.today/RSS. If you want to just put it
By the way, nice new logo.
in. With the feet?
Well, I mean, it's different than the one you had last time, correct?
Yeah, little tweaked, yeah.
Fascinating.
Yep. JB titles. JB
Gotta
titles.
constantly iterate.
Not much there on JB titles. Oh, there's a little more. Crank that Foss shaft. Crankshaft on the move. Can we GTK all live together? I have the power. People are reaching deep this week. People are reaching deep. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. People are reaching deep. Easy Linux, small and cool.
Bad news, Chris.
What's that?
Cast says it's from September years ago.
I don't know what's going on with that. Now, what if you put in techtalk.today/RSS?
Does it pull down a new? Does the old RSS still show the old logo, Wimpy?
Yeah.
Okay. Usually, Pocket Cast is very up to date when it comes to logos and all that.
Pocket Cast. I'm gonna go get. Whoa.
Colonel, you have
hot day.
Holy
audio
shit.
issues.
Maybe that's what he was going for.
Is that Noah?
Yeah.
Is that Noah?
Yeah. Noah sounds terrible.
Yo, Noah. Yeah, I can barely hear.
I thought my audio was bad.
Yeah, he's also operating a wood chipper at the moment.
He's probably just got too much.
Yeah,
Or maybe,
so
or maybe
the updated CSS is RSS is just fine, but
the old feed in it. I gotta talk to him.
Yeah.
We had it. So that was an issue, and we talked to him and said, okay, we got it fixed now. And then the person that we were working with said it was working, but I don't actually use Pocket Cast myself, so I'm installing it right now.
Although, by the way, there's actually a newer app that I would recommend to people who are not on Pocket Cast yet. It's called Castbox. It seems to be...
Jesus, Noah! I don't know. Is this Noah? You stop! You're ruining my post show. Here, let me hit stop on the recording. You just destroyed my post show.